The sun dipped low, a blazing orb melting into the horizon, casting long amber shadows across the sands. Dr. Jonathan Crane stood at the edge of the legendary oasis, his breath caught between disbelief and reverence. The waters before him shimmered with a surreal clarity, reflecting the fiery sky like a mirror to another world. Palm fronds whispered softly in a gentle breeze, their rustling leaves a stark contrast to the oppressive silence that had accompanied their desert journey. Around him, the remnants of his team, Lila Hassan, steadfast and alert, and Dr. Marcus Finch, eyes wide with a mixture of skepticism and wonder, shared the moment, their faces etched with exhaustion and awe. Jonathan's heart pounded, not from exertion, but from the weight of what lay before him. Years of obsession, the relentless chase across unforgiving dunes. The betrayals and sacrifices all had led to this fragile jewel of life suspended beneath the dying light. He stepped forward, toes sinking into the cool sand. The oasis's edge rippling softly as though breathing beneath the surface. He reached out, fingers trembling, and touched the water. It was cool, real, undeniable. "It's real," Marcus whispered, adjusting his dusty glasses, a tremor of wonder breaking through his usual cynicism. Lila's intense eyes scanned the horizon, her voice steady yet tinged with something deeper. "But we don't have much time. The sun's almost gone." Jonathan nodded, swallowing a lump of emotion. The ancient manuscript had promised immortality to those who could find the oasis before twilight. A promise that had driven him through every hardship. But now, standing here, he felt the fragile threads of that promise unraveling. The sun's descent accelerated, the golden hues bleeding into deeper reds and purples. The oasis began to change, the crisp outlines of the palm trees blurred. The surface of the water shimmered unnaturally, like heat waves rising from the desert floor. Jonathan's breath hitched. "Look," he said, voice tight, "it's starting." They watched in stunned silence as the oasis flickered, colors fading as though the world itself was retracting. The water's surface rippled violently, distorting reflections into twisted images. The lush greenery dissolved into shimmering mirages, the oasis turning ethereal, a spectral vision slipping through their fingers. "No," Lila whispered, a note of desperation creeping in. "Don't let it go," but it was beyond their grasp. The oasis shimmered once more, then vanished entirely, leaving only the barren desert stretching endlessly beneath the twilight sky. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the distant howl of the desert wind. Jonathan sank to his knees, the weight of loss pressing down on him like the desert sun. He had sought immortality, but here, in this moment, he understood the truth. Some treasures were not meant to be held forever. The oasis was a fleeting miracle, a reminder of life's impermanence and the beauty found in accepting that mortality. "It's gone," Marcus said softly, sitting beside him, like a dream fading with the dawn. Lila placed a steadying hand on Jonathan's shoulder. "But not all is lost. What we carry now, our experiences, our memories, the lessons, were immortal in that." Jonathan looked up at the emerging stars, the first pinpricks of light against the indigo sky. The desert moon rose, casting a pale glow over the endless dunes. His mind churned with the sacrifices made, the friends lost, and the choices yet to come. The chase had ended, but the story was far from over. Rising slowly, Jonathan faced his companions. "We leave tonight," he said, voice resolute. "The oasis may be gone, but our journey has changed me. I understand now that immortality isn't about endless life, but the legacy we leave behind." Lila nodded, a faint smile breaking through her fatigue. Marcus adjusted his glasses once more, a newfound respect gleaming in his eyes. As they packed their gear under the watchful eye of the desert moon, Jonathan cast one last glance toward where the oasis had shimmered moments before. The desert whispered in the night breeze, secrets held tight beneath the stars. He felt a quiet peace settle within him, a surrender to the desert's eternal mystery. The oasis was gone, but its lesson was etched forever in the sands of his soul. With steady steps, Jonathan Crane led his team away from the vanishing light, their shadows stretching long and thin behind them, chasing the promise not of immortality, but of meaning. Yet, as they vanished into the night, a faint shimmer flickered at the horizon, an echo of the oasis's magic, a whisper of the endless chase that would forever bind them to the desert's unforgiving embrace. And beneath the desert moon, the story was only beginning. The first light of dawn crept gently over the horizon, bathing the endless dunes in a soft, golden glow. Dr. Jonathan Crane stood silently at the edge of the desert, the cool morning air brushing against his weathered face. The vast expanse of sand stretched endlessly before him, a silent witness to the trials and triumphs of the past weeks. His eyes, sharp and steady, traced the familiar curves of the dunes, now peaceful after the storm of events that had brought him and his team back from the brink. Around him, the desert whispered its ancient secrets in the soft rustle of the morning breeze, a lullaby for the weary and a reminder of the eternal chase that had defined his journey. Behind Jonathan, the small outpost stirred with life. The survivors gathered quietly, their footsteps muted on the dusty ground as they circled around a modest campfire. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on their faces, revealing the weariness etched into their features. Leela Hassan, ever the pragmatic guide, shared a faint smile as she exchanged words with Alina Cruz, whose calm presence had been a balm to the team's battered spirits. Dr. Marcus Finch, usually the voice of skepticism, sat contemplatively, his gaze distant as memories of the desert's illusions mingled with the harsh realities they had endured. The air was heavy with unspoken grief and relief. They had lost comrades, faced betrayals, and confronted the merciless desert, but they had survived. Around the fire, stories were shared in low, reflective tonestales of courage and sacrifice, of moments when hope had flickered and nearly died. Jonathan listened, his heart heavy yet lightened by the solidarity that bound them. Each voice carried the weight of the journey, a shared testament to the cost and meaning of their quest. Inside a sparse tent, Jonathan settled at a small wooden table, the soft rustle of parchment the only sound accompanying his thoughtful breathing. His journal lay open before him, pages filled with meticulous sketches of ancient symbols, hastily scribbled notes on temple traps, and reflections on the mirages that had haunted his path. The pen moved steadily, capturing not just facts but emotions, the desperation that had driven him, the fear that had nearly consumed him, and the unexpected clarity that had emerged from the chaos. This was more than a record of an expedition. It was a chronicle of transformation. Jonathan's eyes, once filled with relentless ambition, now held a calm resolve. The elusive promise of immortality had given way to a deeper understanding of legacy, the intangible imprint one leaves on the world far beyond physical existence. He thought of the lost oasis, its ethereal beauty fading like a dream at sunset, a powerful symbol of the delicate balance between myth and reality. Outside the tent, the desert seemed to breathe with a quiet dignity, its vastness a reminder of humanity's fleeting presence against the backdrop of time. Jonathan stepped out, the soft sand cool beneath his boots. He found Lila and Marcus engaged in a hushed conversation. their words carrying a cautious optimism about future expeditions, about preserving history rather than exploiting it. Jonathan's gaze softened as he watched them, a subtle smile touching his lips. For the first time in a long while, the weight of his past failures felt less like a burden and more like a foundation for growth. The camp slowly stirred to life as the sun climbed higher, casting warmth and light over the desert's edge. Jonathan knew the road ahead would not be easy. There were scars to heal, relationships to mend, and new purposes to define. But beneath the vast desert moon of his memories and dreams, he had found something far more enduring than immortality. A commitment to honor the mysteries he had uncovered and the legacy he was destined to forge. As the team prepared to depart the outpost, Jonathan took one last look at the dunes shimmering in the morning light. The desert's whispers lingered in his mind, a timeless echo of the endless chase. With steady steps and a heart tempered by loss and hope, he turned toward the future, ready to embrace the journey beyond the horizon. And in that moment, beneath the awakening sky, the desert held its breath, silent, eternal, and full of promise. Jonathan's reflections were interrupted by a soft voice. Leela approached, her intense eyes meeting his with unspoken understanding. "We've been through hell," she said quietly, "but we survived, and that means something." He nodded, the weight of her words settling deep within him. "It does, more than I ever realized." Marcus joined them, adjusting his glasses. Perhaps the greatest discovery wasn't the oasis itself, but what it taught us about ourselves. Jonathan smiled faintly, "A lesson I won't forget." Together they faced the rising sun, the desert stretching before them like an untold story waiting to be written. The past was behind them, the future uncertain, but for the first time, Jonathan felt ready to meet it with an open heart. The oasis might have vanished with the setting sun, but its legacy etched in sand and soul would endure forever. The morning sun crept steadily over the horizon, casting a gentle amber glow across the city that was both familiar and strangely distant to Dr. Jonathan Crane. Standing on the balcony of his modest apartment, he allowed himself a rare moment of stillness. The sprawling metropolis below buzzed with life, cars honking, people hurrying to work, the distant murmur of conversations, but Jonathan's thoughts were far away, anchored in the shifting sands of the desert and the secrets it held. For years, the desert had been both his adversary and his muse. It had claimed friends, tested his limits, and exposed the deepest parts of his soul. Yet now, after the harrowing journey to the lost oasis and the sacrifices made beneath the desert moon, Jonathan found himself at a crossroads. The oasis itself had vanished like a mirage, but its lessons lingered, reshaping his understanding of purpose and legacy. Inside, the apartment was a modest sanctuary, cluttered with relics of past expeditions. Ancient pottery shards carefully wrapped in cloth, weathered maps pinned to corkboards, and stacks of notebooks filled with meticulous observations. The air still carried the faint scent of leather and old paper, a comforting reminder of the academic life he had dedicated himself to. Leela Hassan entered quietly, her presence steady and grounding. "Coffee's ready," she said with a small smile, her sun-kissed skin glowing softly in the morning light. Jonathan nodded, grateful for the simplicity of the moment. Soon, Dr. Marcus Finch joined them, adjusting his glasses as he settled at the table, strewn with notes and photographs from the expedition. His skeptical eyes softened as he looked over the evidence they had painstakingly gathered. "You know," Marcus began, "I never thought I'd say this, but there's something undeniably real about the oasis's legend. The illusion spell, the ancient guardians, it all fits into a narrative that defies conventional history." Jonathan leaned forward, the weight of responsibility clear in his gaze. It's not just about discovery anymore, Marcus. It's about protection. Some knowledge isn't meant to be exploited or commercialized. We have to be the guardians now. Lila nodded in agreement. The desert holds its secrets tightly, but it also teaches respect. We owe it that much, at least. Their conversation stretched into the afternoon, plans forming not for another treasure hunt, but for a mission to safeguard cultural heritage sites threatened by looters and neglect. Jonathan felt a spark of purpose reignite, tempered by the humility born of loss and experience. Later, in the quiet solitude of the evening, Jonathan visited a small memorial dedicated to the fallen members of their expedition. The plaque stood beside a cluster of desert flowers, delicate and resilient. He knelt, placing a single blossom atop the stone, his fingers trembling slightly. "We carry you with us," he whispered, eyes moist with unshed tears. "Your sacrifice wasn't in vain." Night settled over the city, wrapping it in a blanket of stars. Back in his study, Jonathan's phone buzzed softly, illuminating a new message. It was a coded transmission from an old contact, a hint at more undiscovered mysteries hidden beneath the desert sands. A slow smile spread across Jonathan's face. The chase was far from over. As the desert moon rose high, its pale light spilling through the window, Jonathan felt a profound sense of peace. He understood now that immortality was not a gift to be seized, but a legacy to be earned. And with that realization, a new dawn was breaking, both outside and within. The endless chase continued, but Jonathan Crane was ready to face it. Not as a lone man haunted by the past, but as a guardian of secrets and a protector of history. The desert night stretched endlessly around the small camp, the stars twinkling faintly above like distant beacons. In a sea of darkness, Dr. Jonathan Crane sat slightly apart from the others, his gaze fixed on the dying embers of the campfire, though his mind was far from the flickering flames. Shadows played across his weathered face, carved deep by years under relentless sun and wind, and his sharp eyes held a distant, haunted quality. The desert whispered secrets in the shifting breeze, but Jonathan's thoughts were consumed by memories that refused to fade, memories of a failed expedition that still clung to him like a stubborn shadow. He could almost see it again, the burning heat, the endless dunes, the suffocating silence broken only by the crunch of boots on sand. The faces of his lost colleagues flickered in his mind's eye, friends and comrades swallowed by the desert's merciless grasp during that ill-fated journey years ago. The guilt was a weight he carried silently, a constant companion on this new quest. It was that guilt and the desperate desire to redeem it that fueled his obsession with the lost oasis. A sudden gust of wind stirred the camp, carrying with it the scent of dry earth and distant rock. Jonathan blinked, his memories shifting like a mirage. He recalled the moment the sandstorm had struck during the previous expedition, how the sky darkened in a matter of minutes, how the team scrambled for cover amidst the howling storm. The chaos, the fear, the piercing silence after the storm passed were etched indelibly in his mind. The present intruded as Lila Hassan approached, her footsteps soft on the sand. She was a steady present, sharp-witted and fiercely loyal, her sun-kissed skin and intense eyes reflecting a life lived intimately with the desert's secrets. She paused beside him, her gaze steady in the firelight. "You're not alone in this," she said quietly, breaking the silence. "But you carry a burden heavier than most." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "It's not something I can just set aside, Lila, that failure. It defines me in ways I can't escape." She shook her head gently. "It shaped you, yes, but it doesn't have to control you. You have to face it, not run from it. He looked up, meeting her gaze, the vulnerability in his eyes betraying the stoic facade he often wore. Sometimes I wonder if chasing this oasis is just another way to outrun that past. Leela's expression softened, understanding the complexity beneath his drive. Maybe, but maybe it's also about finding peace. Nearby, Marcus Finch sat cross-legged by a small lantern, his bespectacled face illuminated by its warm glow. The older historian was a man of logic and skepticism, often challenging Jonathan's faith in ancient legends. Tonight, however, his voice was quieter, almost reflective. "Jonathan," Marcus began, "there's a fine line between myth and reality. Sometimes the stories we chase are more about what we need to believe than what truly exists." Jonathan nodded slowly. "And sometimes those stories hold truths that science can't yet explain." The exchange underscored the tension that had long simmered between them, the conflict between faith in legend and the demand for empirical proof. Yet, in the vastness of the desert night, that line felt blurred, as if the very air around them shimmered with possibility. Suddenly, the wind picked up again, a low whistle rising through the camp as a sandstorm brewed on the horizon. The team moved quickly, securing their gear and preparing for the onslaught. Jonathan's heart pounded, not just from the approaching storm, but from the swirling tempest within himself. As the first grains of sand whipped through the air, Jonathan allowed himself a fleeting moment to confront the ghosts of his past. He saw the faces of those he had lost, felt the sting of their absence, but also recognized the strength their memory gave him. This quest was more than a race against time, it was a journey toward redemption. The storm descended with fury, the world reduced to a blur of swirling sand and howling wind. In the shelter of a narrow canyon, the team huddled together, the harsh elements pressing in from all sides. Yet within that crucible, something remarkable occurred, a bond forged in shared struggle and honesty. Jonathan's confession, his willingness to reveal his scars, allowed others to see him not just as a leader, but as a man grappling with profound loss and hope. When the storm finally passed, the desert lay transformed, dusted with fresh sands, the sky clearing to reveal a canopy of stars. The team emerged, tired but unbroken, their resolve steeled. Jonathan's gaze swept the horizon, the elusive shape of the lost oasis, still a distant dream shimmering just beyond reach. He turned to his companions, the weight of his past now a source of strength rather than chains. "We move forward," he said, voice steady. Together, the desert night held its breath, the whispers of the mirage fading into silence as the expedition pressed onward, driven by the hope that some secrets were worth the cost. But beneath the quiet, an unspoken question lingered. Would Jonathan's haunted past prove to be his undoing, or the key to unlocking the oasis's ultimate truth? As the camp settled once more, the desert moon cast long shadows across the dunes, a silent witness to the endless chase that lay ahead. The desert sun dipped low, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the sands as Malik al-Sayed settled into the corner of his tent. The flickering light of a battered lantern danced over the worn manuscripts and maps scattered before him, each page a testament to secrets long buried beneath the desert's unforgiving dunes. His scarred hands traced the faded ink of ancient writings, but his eyes were fixed not on the knowledge they contained, but on the bitterness that churned inside him. Moloch's breath was slow, measured, yet beneath the calm exterior, a tempest raged. The weight of betrayal pressed heavy against his chest, a memory as vivid as the desert heat. This was no ordinary mercenary driven by greed alone. This was a man whose fall from grace had shattered everything he once believed in. A sudden movement outside pulled his attention. Omar, his ruthless enforcer, stood guard, the cold glint in his eyes a stark contrast to the flickering flame inside the tent. Malik nodded to him, the silent command unmistakable. Every moment here was a calculated step closer to the lost oasis, the prize that promised power and redemption. But to understand Malik, one had to unravel the layers of his past, peeling back the scars of a life once devoted to scholarship and honor. Years ago, Malik was a man of promise, a respected academic, his name whispered in the halls of universities for his brilliant mind and unyielding dedication to uncovering history's truths. His zeal for discovery was matched only by his pride in his heritage and the knowledge that his work could change how the world saw the ancient civilizations of the desert. Yet, ambition can be a double-edged sword. Malik's relentless pursuit of a controversial theory regarding the lost oasis drew ire and suspicion from his peers. Accusations of falsifying evidence and unethical conduct surfaced, fueled by rivals threatened by his rising fame. The academic community, once a sanctuary, became a battleground. The day of his expulsion was etched in Malik's memory with crystalline clarity. The cold stone corridors of the university echoed with whispered condemnations. Colleagues he once called friends turned their backs, their eyes cold with judgment. The weight of disgrace crushed him, and with it, the dreams head nurtured since youth. Bitter and broken, Malik's descent into the mercenary underworld was swift and unrelenting. His intellect and knowledge made him a valuable asset to those who sought power through less honorable means. Greed and vengeance became the fuel that drove him, transforming the once brilliant scholar into a shadowy figure commanding a band of mercenaries, all bent on seizing the oasis's power for themselves. This transformation was not without pain. Behind the scars and the ruthless exterior lay a man haunted by loss, driven by a desperate need to prove that he was more than the sum of his failures. Tonight, as the desert wind whispered secrets through the tent flaps, Malik confronted Rashid, the local informant whose loyalty was as shifting as the dunes themselves. The tension between them was palpable, words sharp and measured. "You bring me news, Rashid." Malik's voice was low, edged with impatience. Rashid's eyes flickered with caution. "The desert moves differently now. Your rivals are restless. They seek to claim what you pursue." Malik's jaw tightened, a flicker of vulnerability flashing beneath his hardened gaze. "They do not understand what is at stake. They only see power." "And what do you see, Malik?" Rashid pressed, stepping closer, his voice almost a whisper against the desert's night chorus. For a heartbeat, Malik's mask slipped. The man beneath the mercenary's facade was revealed a man burdened by betrayal, haunted by the ghosts of a life that might have been. "I see a chance to rewrite my story," Malik confessed, voice rough but resolute, "to claim what was stolen from me." The moment passed as quickly as it had come. Malik straightened, reclaiming the mantle of command. "Prepare the men. At dawn we move." Outside, the desert night stretched endless and mysterious, a silent witness to the man's relentless pursuit. Malik's past was no mere backstory, was the crucible that forged his present. His ruthless tactics and unyielding ambition were born of a deep-seated need for redemption and recognition. As the lost oasis beckoned, so too did the promise of a final reckoning. And somewhere beneath the stars, the desert whispered its eternal secrets, waiting for the next chapter in this endless chase. Yet, as Malik prepared for the coming confrontation with Jonathan Crane and his team, the lines between enemy and victim blurred. This was not simply a battle for power, it was a collision of broken dreams and desperate hopes, each man fighting not just for the oasis, but for the salvation of his own soul. The night deepened, and Molech's shadow stretched long across the sands. Tomorrow would bring fire and fury, but tonight the desert held its breath. The story of Molech al-Sayed was far from over, and in the heart of the desert, the past and present were poised to collide with devastating consequences. As dawn approached, the mercenary leader's resolve hardened. He was no longer the fallen scholar of yesterday, but a man reborn in the crucible of ambition and pain. The oasis awaited, and Molech would stop at nothing to claim his destiny. But fate, like the desert sands, was ever shifting, and the ultimate price of Molech's quest remained to be seen. With the first light of morning painting the horizon, Molech whispered to himself, "This time I will not fail." The desert wind carried his vow into the vastness, a promise etched in sand and shadow, heralding the storm that was to come.